Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea. This is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. We are back with yet another huge week in the world of Nintendo, and this time it's going to be more of a news-heavy episode. But if you like impressions of video games, don't worry, because in the main segment, I will be talking about my recent trip to Copenhagen to check out 007 First Light for this month's Game Informer cover story. Plus, we will have impressions on Resident Evil Requiem, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, and Dispatch. But first, like I mentioned, we've got some news to get to. Joining me for that is my recent concert buddy, even though we didn't sit anywhere near each other. It's Game Informer's own Wesley LeBlanc. Wes, how are you?
Doing good. I'm doing good. I'm wishing I was back at last weekend's concert again to view it because it was such a good time.
Yeah, so we'll start off with that because you and I actually hung out together a week ago, which doesn't feel like it was that long ago. This week has kind of flown by. We went to the Persona Live concert, which came to the U.S. for the first time ever. It featured musicians, or I guess it was mostly one guitarist from Atlas, and then the vocalists of Persona 3 Reload and Persona 5. And it was fantastic. You know, I think that you and I are kind of in agreement that Persona 5 in particular is one of the greatest video game soundtracks of all time, but Persona 3 is pretty fantastic as well. And like seeing these songs performed live, like I remember when Lynn performed at the Game Awards 2020 and we were all like, you know, quarantined and like not going anywhere, but she performed like a studio version of Last Surprise for the Game Awards, and it hit so hard. It was like, I think the debut of like the Persona 5 Strikers version where it's like a lot more rock focused, and it was so good. And I was like, I would love to see this performed live. And then we finally had that chance because first Lynn came out and performed all the songs you'd want to hear from the Persona 5 soundtrack. Then there was a very, very brief break, like probably like 3 or 4 minutes max. And then Lotus Juice and Azumi Takahashi, who is the vocalist that performed on Persona 3 Reload. Lotus Juice is the rapper that performed on both Persona 3 and Persona 3 Reload. They came out and performed all the songs you'd want to hear from that soundtrack. So it was pretty phenomenal. Beforehand, we had a chance to meet with them, and I got to interview the singers, which was amazing. We got some pictures with them, but it was really just cool to meet them as well, because like, I mean, they created one of or two of the greatest video game soundtracks, I think, of the last 25 years pretty easily.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was like starstruck meeting Lynn because she's just one of my favorite vocalists ever. Like, that's the thing about Persona music, is it like breaks out of video game music, and it's like it's just good tunes to listen to. Like even my wife, who has not played Persona, like enjoys listening to those songs because, I mean, she likes video game music too, but they just are great songs that happen to be for a video game. And Lynn is just such an amazing voice, and getting to meet her and have her sign stuff. I have a Joker tattoo on my right calf. I got to show her, and she took a picture of that on her phone, and like, yeah, it was just very surreal to meet these people. And then also I've never been able to meet somebody on that caliber and then go watch them do their thing an hour later. I've met some musicians I really enjoy, you know, backstage or like in a tent at Warped Tour and stuff, and then watch them play on stage. But Lynn was like on a different level, and it was very cool to see how humble and kind and nice she was, and then go out there and sing amazingly for an hour.
Yeah, and I mean, it was kind of surprising as well how like soft-spoken they all were in the interview, and then you just see them come alive when they came out on stage. And I think Azumi Takahashi in particular surprised me because her voice, she's a very tiny woman. And like noticeably smaller than Lynn, and they're both noticeably smaller than Lotus Juice, who's a pretty large guy. Azumi's voice, like I think I probably could have heard her. I was probably about like 10 rows back from the stage. I probably could have heard her even with the crowd if she did not have a microphone. That's how strong her voice was, and I was blown away by, like, obviously I've heard her in the studio, like with playing through Persona 3 Reload, but like it hit differently live.
Yeah, and she's phenomenal. Like, I mean, you know that if you know the soundtrack, but she like really nailed it live, and so did Lynn. But I was also surprised by her most. And Lotus Juice, uh, he talks exactly how he sounds like he talks based on the soundtrack. Like when I heard him talking, I'm like, yep, that's the dude that raps in Persona 3. And then on stage, he's like so hype and cool. And yeah, he's just got such a deep voice. And he I don't know if he was born in Jersey or grew up in Jersey. But he answered in English while Lynn and Azumi answered in Japanese. And yeah, he's just such a like a fun, charismatic, very deep voice dude. And I learned a lot too. Like it was like I didn't know that he was a primary lyricist for not just Persona 3 but Persona 5 as well, and he wrote one of my favorite songs in P5, which is I Believe.
Yeah.
That was really really cool. And yeah, at the end of the concert they like all came out on stage because they also had dancers dressed up as the cast of 3 and 5 and did like a big little performance that was really cool. And yeah, it was so awesome, and it's the first time and we got to see that. And like yeah, it was a really 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 fun time.
Yeah, I would absolutely recommend it if they end up doing a wider tour across the US, like, and they come near
Yeah.
you, like, absolutely go to that. Wes, I posted the video, and it, like, the 5 one in particular on TikTok has done some numbers.
Oh,
And
shoot.
it turns out that a meme that has emerged out of this, or at least a rumor that has emerged out of this, is that the smell in the venue was unbearable. I was on the ground, so I did not notice any kind of smell. You were up in one of the balconies. Was there any kind of like noticeable like stench or anything?
No, no, it wasn't like I'm sure that meme is referencing just Persona fan base the same way that we all make jokes about going into card shops and people playing Magic, and I'm a Magic player and I've witnessed those smells firsthand. No, I didn't see any or hear any of that at the Persona concert. There were like people I walked by where I was like, "Oh, that's a little stinky," but sitting in the crowd, I was like I was fine. I feel like I can go to any concert and walk by someone that's a little maybe forgot to deodorize. But sitting in the seats and I was up top, no, no, it wasn't. It didn't smell. We
Okay.
I was there with one of my best friends, and we had an empty seat on my left and an empty seat on his right. So we kind of just made our own little venue space, and people were not clapping. Like
What?
yeah, I know. It was crazy. It was the weirdest crowd up there. I was jealous of you guys down on the orchestra rows, but they were not clapping. They weren't singing. They were sitting. It was very like polite. And I was like, this is not an orchestral concert, you guys. This is a show. Like you can get excited and get hype. And turns out it was just me and my friend were the only ones up there doing any of that.
Well, the people down by me were losing their minds,
I
and
saw and I'm jealous.
Lynn even referenced that in the beginning. She's like, "Yeah, in Japan we don't get like the crowd going crazy during our songs like this.
Hmm.
It's usually after the songs that they will like acknowledge that they enjoyed it." Whereas like in the US, like we're like screaming like during like
Yeah.
big moments of it and everything. So she at least picked up that like the fans were hyped about it, even if like maybe a little bit higher up they were a little bit tamer.
Yeah, I
But
think one thing that would have helped, and I'm sure you'll recognize and agree as somebody who also goes to a lot of concerts, is they needed a live band. Like there should be a live
yeah,
band on stage. This was like a backtrack, and actually it sounded like a new backtrack. Like I don't think it was playing just stems from the actual games. I feel like they maybe recorded something new for this, played that, and then the Atlas Sound Team guitarist was on stage, and then just the singer, and it was kind of like a little empty on the stage. And I especially was missing like a drum set live. I really think that would have taken it over the top. But it's the first one. Maybe they come back and um, they add and hear feedback. I think a lot of people are probably going to want a live band because some of those songs are so hype and so good musically. But
yeah.
other than that, I really, yeah, it was a really good time.
Yeah, really, that's the only critique that I could throw at them is that, yeah,
Hmm.
a live band experience would be far superior. And like,
Yeah.
you can do a live band experience and still have a backing track for like the instruments that you aren't going to have on stage. But like, yeah, if they had a guitarist, bassist, drummer, and keyboardist, I think that would just work wonders to fill it out.
Yeah,
But
especially
as
because
it
the show is
was,
in LA. Like it's dime a dozen out there in LA. Like you could find a band day of to play those songs. But
there's a few session musicians out there, you're saying.
yeah, yeah, just a bit.
Well, we will be transitioning to the news in just a moment. But first, a reminder that this show is brought to you by the fine folks who support me on Patreon. Without them, this show literally would not continue to exist. You can get access to the community Discord for as little as $3 a month, and we are talking Nintendo, the latest gaming news, and showing off our collectibles and game collections all day long over there. But there are also $5 and $10 tiers that get you early and ad-free episodes, plus shout-outs at the end of every show. You can join the team that makes this show happen by going to patreon.com and searching for Brian Shea or All Things Nintendo. It is only because of the fine folks who support this podcast on Patreon that I'm able to keep doing this as an independent entity week after week. And also a secondary reminder that 100% of the money that I receive from Patreon the next time a payment processes will be donated to the ACLU, who are constantly on the front lines of civil rights battles. If you would like to support them directly, you can also donate by heading to aclu.org and clicking the donate button, or by visiting the link in the show description. Also, one more housekeeping note. Based on the comments I received regarding the upcoming community game night that I mentioned last week, it sounds like we're pretty evenly split between Kirby Air Riders and Mario Kart World, so we might do a twofer upcoming on that. So I'll be deciding like a date pretty soon here. I'm looking actually at next weekend potentially. So if you're on the Patreon or Discord, keep your eyes open on an announcement on that front, hopefully in the next several days. All right, Wes, with all of that out of the way, let's jump into some news. There is actually a ton of rumor and speculation about when the next Nintendo Direct will be, like the proper Nintendo Direct. I've been hearing rumors that it's going to be very soon. Like some people are saying as early as next week. Other people are saying mid-February. But this week alone, we got 2 Nintendo Directs. So we're going to start there with this week of news. And first up, last Sunday, that's right, we are now doing these on the weekend, apparently. We got our second substantial look at the Super Mario Galaxy movie. And Wes, what were your thoughts on the original Super Mario Brothers movie?
The 2023 one.
Yes.
I thought you were asking about the 80s one or 90s one for a second, and I was
we don't acknowledge that one anymore.
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed it. It was great. It didn't like blow my socks off, but I didn't really go in expecting it to, because it is just Mario, Luigi versus Bowser and Princess Peach. But I had a really good time, and in particular, I really enjoyed the animation. Music was a letdown, which, you know, that's beating a dead horse at that point. But it was great, and I've been thoroughly excited for this sequel, and I'm very, very excited as we get closer and closer to it.
And to clarify, you're talking about like the needle drops of like licensed songs. Because I think like the actual soundtrack, like the original score was fantastic. It just wasn't utilized enough.
Agreed. Yeah. The actual album is great. The way that it was implemented in the movie could have been better. And I really hope, I don't mind a needle drop here and there. That is a Chris Pratt movie after all, but like, you know, I forget the composer, but he's doing really awesome stuff.
Brian Tyler, I think.
Yeah, and it's like, use that. That's what us Mario fans want to hear.
Yeah, I agree 100% there. And what did you think about the first trailer? That was the one that came out back in November, I think.
It was awesome because I wasn't sold on it being a Galaxy movie. I thought it was going to be like a world movie or something. And the way that they like tease that and then shoot up into the sky, I thought that was very cool and a nice little touch. And honestly, I would probably would have been fine just with that. I didn't need to see anything more at that point. I'm sold, but everything they've shown so far has been fun.
Yeah. So the second trailer that we just got this past weekend focused on Yoshi, which, you know, anyone who saw the first movie and stuck around for the credits teaser could have seen coming. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Mario's green dinosaur buddy is joining the action. Whereas, you know, the last trailer gave us looks at Bowser Jr. and Rosalina. So they're slowly building up the roster. We also got new looks at Mario and Luigi in the Sand Kingdom from Mario Odyssey. They also used a fire flower, which the transformation animation that they did for that was super cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Peach fighting Birdo and what appears to be the entire enemy slate of the US version of Super Mario Brothers 2. Luigi using the frog suit from Mario 3 on what looks like maybe Yoshi's Island. Like that area looks kind of like Yoshi Island-esque. So lots of stuff from other games, and I've seen a lot of concern that like maybe this isn't actually a movie super focused on Super Mario Galaxy and instead just like kind of like Mario, the first Mario Brothers movie, where it's just like a franchise wide film? Like, how do you
Hmm.
feel on that topic? Like, are you concerned that we're casting too wide of a net here?
No, I don't really care, to be honest, where they pull Mario references from. Like, I don't think there's like a canon to Mario that I'm concerned with. And just because the movie's called Galaxy doesn't mean they can only show Galaxy stuff. Um, I don't know. I guess it's just like something I don't get that serious about. Like, Mario's on screen. That's really all I'm interested. That's really what I'm here for when I'm watching a Mario movie. I'm not going to be upset if like this specific world from Galaxy isn't shown or if too many Odyssey references are made. Um, Ultimately, the title is just marketing. So like, I don't know. I'm completely dismissed from the discourse. That's how I'd like to be.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we get a little too in the weeds in the
Yeah.
discourse. Well, we
Some
also got an all new poster for the movie. I don't know if you've seen this, Wes,
yes. Yeah.
but it shows Mario riding Yoshi, which I believe is the first time we've seen that in the film franchise.
Mhm.
Because I think in all the scenes, Yoshi's just running alongside him, whereas
Yeah.
in the poster, he's actually mounted on Yoshi, and they're looking off into the distance at a spherical planet, which is very Mario Galaxy. And I almost wonder if that was to play more into the Mario Galaxy elements, almost like they knew Galaxy fans would see the trailer and be like, "You're referencing every Mario game but Galaxy in this
Yeah.
trailer."
I mean, I
Like,
think so. And then, not to mention that other trailer was a lot of Galaxy. Like, it
mhm.
was Rosalina, it was zooming through space, jumping into the stars, like all that kind of stuff. So I think it's okay that this one wasn't as Galaxy focused.
So while we're talking about Mario Galaxy, is there any one element that you want to see them bring in from Galaxy and like hint at in or full on like touch on in this movie?
I guess most important for me, like the biggest miss this movie can make if it's a Galaxy movie, um, other than Rosalina, which we already know is in there, so that's great, and the Lumas, would probably be like the gravity mechanics. That's like the most memorable part of Galaxy for me, and using those to like platform. And I think it'd be cool to see them do that in this in this movie. I think that's one thing this movie could do better than the first one is implement like what we do in the Mario games better into the movies. We had that like platforming training montage section
Set
with
to a licensed song.
yes, to of course. And that was like the most, oh, this is like Mario the video game scene other than like the Mario Kart scene. And I think that like it'd be cool if Galaxy leaned a bit more into how those games play and what they are like when you're playing. You could like his the waggle spin. Like I want to see that
Mhm.
on screen.
Well, we also saw like it looks like they're in Bowser's castle or something like that because there is
Mhm.
like the the fireball like beam that
Yeah.
falls down on them. And it looks like legitimately like cool when
Yeah.
that happens in the trailer. And I'm like, all right, they might be pulling more elements from the games in this. I almost wonder if they were instructed both on the music front and like the action front to play it a little bit safe and try to appeal to like a more mainstream audience. And then like this exploded and everybody was like, hey, we want more Mario stuff, not just like give us like holding out for a hero or
Yeah.
take on me. Like we don't need that stuff because people just love Mario. And I hope that's the big lesson they took from the first movie. Because it's just all the non Mario stuff is the weakest part of that first movie, I feel
Yeah.
like.
Absolutely. For sure. I don't know why they act like Mario needs to be adjusted to be mainstream. Like Mario is
Yeah,
arguably the most mainstream already because of what he is. Not you don't need to try to make him mainstream. And I think the
100%.
movie's $1 billion it made demonstrates that.
Yeah, and I think that I mean this movie is probably gonna cross that billion mark again. Like if I had to guess, like I'm no like
Yeah,
box office specialist, but like, are a lot of people who went and saw the first Mario movie gonna be like, not for me the second time? Like I feel like most people who went to the Mario Brothers movie 3 years ago, uh, they came away being like, yeah, that was pretty fun. I would see another one of those.
yeah. Even if you didn't like it, I think you'd still go see another Mario movie. The only thing I think of is like I think box office in general is down just for everyone because it's harder and harder to go spend $50 on a movie. And they already announced that Netflix got the rights to it, so it'll
Oh,
like air on Netflix later, which to me was a silly thing to announce because I feel like more than any other audience, the Netflix audience is the one that are going to be like, I'll wait till it comes to Netflix, and then they will. But I mean, even James Cameron's latest Avatar movie didn't get anywhere close to the first two, and I don't think it's because it's a bad movie. I think it's just with everything going on right now in America and the world. Spending money on a movie is harder and harder.
Yeah, but there's
I'll be there,
also
but
factors like the tickets are more expensive now probably than they were 3 years ago.
yeah,
So that might serve as a boost to the box office, but it also might alienate some people and be like, yeah, well, I can't afford because it used to be, $35 to take my family to the movies and now it's $60 to take my
yeah,
family to the movies. But then, does the amount of people who still do go to the movies make up for that? Like, it's going to be interesting to watch how the box office plays out in this. Because also, I think that a lot of people they weren't sold on a Mario movie. And I know, like, my
hmm
brother's family, they waited till it came on streaming. And now I bet those kids are going to want to go see this in theaters. So, like,
yeah,
there also is probably a lot of people who were converted on streaming. And now, like, the kids are 3 years older and they want to go see it in theaters.
yeah, absolutely. It'll be
So.
exciting. I mean, the movie will be a success. There's no world where it's not going to be a success, but how successful, we'll see.
Sure. Well, it comes to theaters starting on April 1st, which is 3 years to the day after the premiere of the Super Mario Brothers movie back in 2023, which it feels weird. I know I've said 3 years a couple of times, but it does feel weird that was 3 years ago.
Yeah, it does. I'm still getting used to it being 2026. Like,
Yeah.
Hey there, I'm Hugh from Moderation. If you liked today's episode, why not check out Dice Will Roll, the queerest Pathfinder show on the planet? Join a crew of 4 friends asking you the important questions about RPGs, like, is it cannibalism to eat a polymorph chicken? From getting 4 nat 1 to the roll to standing up to the darkest forces in the multiverse, Dice Will Roll is available wherever you get your podcasts.
it feels weird.
Well, Wes, the second Nintendo Direct that we got this week, which feels, speaking of things that feel weird to say, the second Nintendo Direct
Yeah.
focused on Tomodachi Life Living the Dream. So that is a follow-up to the 3DS game from 2013. And if you're saying who remembers or who cares about that game, you'd be surprised. It sold nearly 7 million copies, making it the 11th best-selling game on the 3DS.
Whoa.
Here are some of the games that it is ahead of in terms of sales. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, Ocarina of Time 3D, Majora's Mask 3D, Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer, and The Legend of Zelda A Link Between Worlds.
Wow. That's
So
actually kind of crazy.
some heavy hitters that it outlasted. I think Link Between Worlds is one of the best Zelda games ever created, and I think a lot of people agree with that. And Tomodachi Life outsold it, so it's just below Super Smash Brothers and I forget what the other game. I think it's Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon are the 2 games ahead of it. So it's right up there with some of the heavy hitters. So the Direct lasted 22 minutes. But a lot of that was just explaining what a Mii is and how you create a Mii, which made me feel older than I've ever felt in my entire life, which I guess makes sense because I'm older every subsequent second than I've ever been in my entire life. So I guess that checks out. So you create your Miis that are going to be included on this island, and you choose your appearance, gender identity, personality, and then you go about living their lives on the island. And the customization, Wes, I was actually surprised by this. I was ready to skip through here's how you create your Mii.
Yeah.
And then I'm glad I watched it because it looks so much more involved than previous Mii creators. So there's like so much more visual stuff that you can do. Like you can draw manually on their faces and everything. Whereas before you used to kind of have to like warp the eyes to like look in certain ways or like move their eyebrows down in a weird way to make it look like facial hair or mustache that's like crazy or something. Now you can just take your pencil to it looks like, and draw whatever you want on their faces. And then personality customization. You can also give them little quirks, which are like little like kind of tiny habits or movements that they make that like give them just a little bit more individuality. On the island, you can give them gifts, which unlocks like different traits that they have, like their likes and dislikes and loves. So like if you find out that like one of your Miis really loves cheesecake, if they're feeling down, you can bring them a slice of cheesecake and it'll boost their mood. So try to keep them happy. You can also help them forge relationships, both friendships and it looks like romantic relationships as well. You can introduce topics of conversation if groups aren't hitting it off the way you want them to. There are several shops where the items rotate daily. There's like rare items that you can find. Like somebody bought a lion, like a photorealistic lion in the direct, which is kind of interesting. But there's like a grocery store, there's clothing stores, there's news station where they give you a breaking news thing every so often, and it's just like the most absurd stuff involving your
Yeah.
Mii's. Like it's all like really weird, like almost like dream logic. So like that's always my favorite stuff because it's all like text to voice. So it's all sounding very robotic and everything. And that's so much of the charm of the Tomodachi Life franchise. And like having these characters interact with each other and like their different personalities clashing is always the main appeal. And all this stuff seems like they're giving you so many more toys to play with these characters. Like you can dress them up, you can buy like home customization stuff, you can go take your Mii's to a photo booth and like pose them in different ways. Mii's will ask you to change things around the island if they're not like up to their liking. Like the example they gave is like one of the characters was like, hey, this island would look so much cooler if we had like a lot of like plants. So you could go around and like plant a bunch of flower pots or like put palm trees around the island. And then in addition to customizing your Mii's, you can decorate the homes and then the island as well. And it seems really, really robust. Like this was not the way that the 3DS version was really like, as far as I remember. I mean, that was 13 years ago, but like it seems like you can make some pretty wild stuff based on like the examples that they showed off. And then there's also like you can make your Mii's like live together, which gives you all new interactions, and like you can see how these different personalities clash. It doesn't seem like it's like a complete revolutionizing of the first game's formula, but it does seem like they're taking some pretty big swings in terms of like evolving the formula. Wes, did you ever check out the 3DS version?
No, I didn't. I didn't even really know about it till after they announced this version, and that's when I learned what Tomodachi Life was. I'm interested. I'm not. These types of games aren't typically for me, but I'll probably pick it up and show my wife it because she loves Animal Crossing, and this seems. Uh, Kyle in our preview that he wrote this morning for the or breakdown of all the news said it's like a mix of The Sims and Animal Crossing. Like The Sims is lifestyle and personality, and with the Mii's, and then the Animal Crossing is the building of your island and your homes and all that. And my wife loves Animal Crossing. She used to like Sims, so I think that this will be like a game that she'll be super interested in once I show her. But yeah, it looks cool, and I think uh, of note I've seen. I remember before this direct, people were like, "I really hope the one thing they fix of the old game is like allowing same-sex marriages and that kind of stuff," which I guess notoriously was not in the 3DS game.
Mm-hmm.
And it is in this version, which is really cool. So that's nice to see for the fan base.
Yeah, definitely. I'm super stoked for this. And I think that's a great way to describe these. Like if you're giving an elevator pitch of what Tomodachi Life is, it really does feel like it's a couple dashes of Animal Crossing, couple dashes of The Sims, and then throw in kind of like that zany like me quirkiness that you get. And that's really what Tomodachi Life is. And like they really do embrace the weird in it, which is something that I love about the franchise. It's my favorite thing. And like you can create your friends, you can create your family, you can create just people that you know. Like I might do a Game Informer Island and see how that plays out. That would be fun, I think. But like I used to have like all kinds of random celebrities on my island, like because people would share their formulas, because you could actually like download Mii's from across the internet. I don't know if you can do that with this one, but like I would just go across and like download like, oh, I want this random celebrity to come on my island and room with, my brother who's also on the island. And it's just like seeing what they get up to is always so much fun. And then like, your character will dream at night sometimes. And like the random cast of characters that you have will just be in there, and it's all like the dream logic and everything. So it's just like the craziest stuff imaginable happens in the game. And based on the name of this, it seems like they're going to probably play into that a little bit more with this franchise or with this entry. But they announced or they reinforced that Tomodachi Life Living the Dream is coming to Switch on April 16th. So not too far from now. Like, what was that, 2.5 months?
Yeah. No Switch 2 edition though. I mean, it plays on Switch 2, but
yeah, all they said was it's compatible on the Nintendo Switch 2.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't know what that means. I don't know if there's going to be any like performance boosts or anything. We're still a little ways away.
Yeah.
We'll probably have like a preview of it or something in the near future that, it's kind of getting to that time where
Mhm.
Nintendo's going to start revealing more information, as we saw with this direct. So maybe that'll be in a future beat of like how it will run on the Switch 2, because it would be cool to have it like even if it's just like better load times. I think that's a
Yeah, that's
huge boost. Like we just saw
better
that with
load
Donkey Kong
times.
Country Returns.
Yeah, increased frames, maybe, like that kind of stuff goes a long way. And I feel like, I mean, I don't know, but I know with like the PS5 from talking to devs, it was pretty easy. Like you didn't really have to do anything. The PS5 just being stronger and like, flipping a few switches made PS4 games run better. I
Same
kind
thing
of
for
hope that.
Xbox.
Yeah, yeah, and I hope that I don't know if that's what it's like on Switch too, but I can't imagine it wouldn't be, considering it seems ubiquitous across the industry. So I hope they find a way to do something, or maybe they're going to announce a Switch 2 edition closer to launch. We'll see.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see on that front, but April 16th, not too far
Yeah,
away, and this is pretty high up on like my most anticipated for like the first half of 2026, which feels weird to say, but like
yeah, yeah. There's a lot this first half.
the
That's a
first
big.
yeah, like the first Tomodachi Life was a top 5 3DS game for me. So like
Oh wow.
and it just felt like a series that Nintendo was just going to ignore forever.
Yeah,
So the fact that this is coming back makes me so happy. Like when this was first revealed, I fist pumped. Like it's one
yeah.
of those announcements. Like I know people are like waiting for like the next Animal Crossing, and I'm waiting for the next 3D Mario for sure, but like this was just one of those that I didn't see coming, and it came out of nowhere, and
You
I'm
never
super
saw it
stoked
coming.
for it. I never
Yeah.
saw it coming. Yes.
What do you make of the sharing of images, or the lack of being able to share images in the game?
You mean like in terms of like they haven't announced anything, right? Like,
No, they said today like you can take screenshots on your Switch, but you will not be able
oh,
to upload them to share them or anything. So like you'd have to find a workaround to get images, or just take a picture of your Switch with your phone,
yeah.
to preserve the fun enjoyment of the series. I don't know. Like they've never done anything like this, and it's weird. I don't know what to make of it.
Sorry, I thought you meant in terms of like I thought you meant like you can't download like other Mii's
Oh no,
or
no,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean that is weird, but like Nintendo always has weird restrictions on it. We're going to be talking
Mhm.
at the tail end of the show about another weird restriction that Nintendo has put in place regarding the superhero adventure game Dispatch.
Yeah,
That we'll be talking about with Kyle Hilliard later on in this show. But Nintendo has weird, inconsistent restrictions. Like, and it's also like Pokemon, you can't have cloud saves. And I think Animal Crossing was the same way, where you couldn't have
yeah.
cloud saves.
I kind of understand the Pokemon one because you could abuse that to get multiple Pokemon. But with Tomodachi, not allowing you to share your screens is very weird, because that's like the appeal of these games and these types of games. Like Animal Crossing, when it blew up, half the fun was posting your creations and memes and funny things online. And I feel like you're kind of shooting Tomodachi in the kneecap if you're not going to let people with so much customization and so much in-depth features like that not being able to post about it online in an easy way. It's a weird restriction. I wonder if it has to do with knowing people are going to make celebrities and they don't want people doing weird stuff with celebrity. I don't know.
Yeah, they don't want. I'm not even going to go there.
There's so many places you could go.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I could see that. I could see also being like with the enhanced like me customization, people making like inappropriate stuff. Maybe.
Yeah, almost undoubtedly. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's probably the biggest danger, but oh well. I'm still
Yeah.
excited for it, even if that's a weird, inconsistent restriction that
The gamers will
just
find a workaround. That's all.
yes. I mean, we all have high quality cameras in our pockets
Yes.
at any given time, so I think
Yeah.
that we'll find ways to share images of this game online.
Yeah.
But Wes, Nintendo was not done putting out videos just with those two directs, because we also got a trailer showing off the Virtual Boy that is
Yeah.
coming to Nintendo Switch Online. And as a reminder, in order to play these games, you will need to buy either the $100 replica of the Virtual Boy for Switch or Switch 2, or the $30 cardboard version. So that's a weird like blocking of, obviously cutting down the audience by a substantial amount right off the bat. It's already a very niche edition. But first up, we have the launch lineup, which includes Galactic Pinball, Tellero Boxer, Red Alarm, Virtual Boy Wario Land, 3D Tetris, Golf, and the Mansion of Innsmouth. They also mentioned that there will be adding more across 2026, including Mario Clash, Mario's Tennis, Jack Brothers, Space Invaders Virtual Collection, Virtual Bowling. I'm having a hard time talking. I blame the cold medicine. Vertical Force, V Tetris, and 2 previously unreleased games known as Zero Racers and Dragon Hopper, which has been renamed to D Hopper as a result of an apparent copyright issue. And like I said, all those games are going to hit in 2026. So it's going to be a pretty steady growth for this Virtual Boy collection over the course of this year. The collection will also feature the ability to rewind gameplay, remap your controls, and change the filter to make it so it's not the apocalyptic red that the Virtual Boy has come to be known for. Wes, are you going to throw down $30 or $100 to get access to this library?
No, not in a million years. I don't have any love for the Virtual Boy. I've never checked it out. I'd like to. I'd like to see some, maybe use some bodies or something like that. But personally, no, I would not pay $100 for the device, and I also would not pay $30 for cardboard because that seems like Nintendo making fun of me, and I'm good. I'm excited for the people that are excited, although I don't know if anyone likes these games. I think it's cool that Nintendo's making a console system thing that is basically impossible to play today playable. And I think it's really, really cool that they're releasing 2 unreleased games. I think that's like that's the big news for me. I think that's a really cool thing to do. I think it's kind of wild that of all the companies, Nintendo's doing that. And I'm excited to see what people think of those. Like we probably won't, but theoretically we could have 2 new Virtual Boy reviews on GameInformer.com because these are unreleased games, and I think that's cool. It's cool, and I think the Racer one, isn't that like a F-Zero related somehow, like a spinoff or something?
Well,
or
it's called
started
Zero
as F-Zero?
Racers. So
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it is.
I think it's related to F-Zero or something.
Yeah, I don't know. But my question for you, Wes, do you think Nintendo releasing a Virtual Boy peripheral that is required to play the Virtual Boy games is the company testing the waters for other potential peripherals, like the one that I think a lot of people have been waiting for, a second screen attachment for the Switch 2 so they can do things like DS, 3DS, and Wii U?
Yeah, it could be, and that one makes a lot more sense to me, because like you need it. Like I don't know if anybody's ever. I've tried emulating DS games legally with my ROMs that I own, and without a second screen, it's kind of weird. And I think that one would make more sense. This one, I mean, I guess you kind of need a Virtual Boy to play them, but like, why can't you just make the cardboard thing like a document I can download and build my own? Charging $30 for it seems a bit limiting, especially considering if I'm playing these Virtual Boy games, I'm already a premium subscriber of your service, and it's kind of frustrating to be like, can you pay more? I kind of feel the same way about. I've been watching Fallout lately on Amazon Prime, and they recently started doing ads, even though we pay Amazon Prime, and I'm like, does not feel good to pay a lot of money and then get gouged for even more for something that shouldn't be there, whether that be a cardboard box cutout thing or ads. Companies are maybe testing me too much, but I would buy a screen attachment for the Switch 2. I could see them doing nunchucks and Wiimotes. I guess that's really it. I don't know what else.
Second screen and like nunchucks. I mean, nunchucks could just be an attachment for the Joy-Con. Like the Joy-Con does a pretty good job of the motion controls. I mean, I think the Joy-Cons are better than the Wii remote originally was, but I think that the Wii Motion Plus is better than the Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
At least that's the sense in like the limited amount of motion controls that I play on Switch and Switch 2.
I don't typically use motion controls much these days.
But I've reviewed like some of the Mario Party games that require you to use the Joy-Cons for motion controls, and it performs admirably. And I've tried out Skyward Sword HD with the Joy-Cons for motion controls, and it works fine. So I think that they could get away with just making like a nunchuck attachment, but by then it's like, well, there's already like kind of a nunchuck attachment in just pulling up a second Joy-Con.
Yeah, and that would not stop them. They would happily, and we'd probably buy it. I mean, it's really, Nintendo has the minds of nostalgia like no other, And I could easily see myself being like, oh, I could hold a nunchuck again in 2026 and use it. Sure, why not? I guess it's just for me, the line stops somewhere before Virtual Boy. So here we are.
Yeah. Well, it is cool that they're acknowledging this, because like we see a lot of companies be like, we're not going to re-release our worst game ever. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
Sega or Sonic Team is going to re-release Sonic 06 or, you know, some of the crappier Sonic games that came out during that era. Like, they're just like happy to leave that in the past, even if there are
Mhm.
ways they could make it, you know, a successful game by like tweaking some stuff. We're seeing that with the fan game Sonic 06 or Sonic P06, Project 06. It's a fan game that fixes like the physics and like the controls and everything. And from all indications, it's a much better game now.
Yeah.
So it's cool that Nintendo is actually embracing what is, you know, pretty universally acknowledged as their biggest failure.
Yeah, I feel like Kyle Hilliard of Game Informer, who's on the show later, is like one of the more excited people I know for this. But I think, ironically enough, if I'm not mistaken, he tracked down a Virtual Boy in recent years or something to play them. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else, but I'm pretty sure it was Kyle. So it's funny now that there is a much cheaper way to do that.
I used to have a Virtual Boy on my desk
Ooh,
back when Game Informer had a physical office, because we had all of our old consoles just in a closet, and I went in there and I was like, there's just a Virtual Boy sitting here. That's like cool as hell to put on my
yeah.
desk. And it was an immediate conversation starter anytime anybody visited the office.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that, I mean, I've never seen one in person, I don't think, unless they've had them at a Nintendo store before, but I don't think so. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So the Virtual Boy library arrives on Switch and Switch 2 on February 17th, but again, you need that peripheral in order to play it. Wes, we're going to close the news segment on one of the more random stories of this week. So the Disney Afternoon Collection came out on other platforms in 2017, but for whatever reason, it really never even was mentioned for the Switch, which is kind of a weird omission. But the collection includes NES and SNES games, Chippendale Rescue Rangers 1 and 2, Darkwing Duck, DuckTales 1 and 2, and Tailspin. Now we are finally getting it on Switch and Switch 2, and it's also adding 2 new games, which is completely unexpected. So, random trivia here. Goof Troop. Did you ever play Goof Troop?
No, I don't think so. I'm not even familiar with it.
So, oddly enough, it is one of the first games of Resident Evil creator Shinji Mikami.
What? Is it a horror game?
No, it's not a horror game. It's just it's a goofy game. So like literally starring Goofy and Max. And then Bonkers is the other game to join the collection. And you can rewind, create save states. There's a gallery, a music player, time attack, boss rush mode with online leaderboards. And to top it all off, it is done by Digital Eclipse, so you know that I trust it to be good. But I was completely caught off guard by this, Wes. Do you have any attachment to any of these old Disney games?
I played DuckTales, and I've probably played a lot of the other ones. I don't specifically remember. I'm looking at Goof Troop now, and I definitely have not played it. And also, Goof Troop's not a 2D platformer,
No.
which is even more interesting. It almost looks like a Zelda type of experience, like a top-down isometric thing. That's really cool. But no, I mean, I've played, DuckTales, and that's the only one I've definitively played. I'm sure I've played these other ones because we had a bunch of them. Like our SNES collection was pretty huge growing up. But yeah, I've been wanting to give these a try, and I didn't even realize it wasn't on Switch. That's a very strange omission considering these were all Nintendo games. Well, mostly. Yeah, I'm excited. And like you said, Digital Eclipse is pretty much always good for their word. So, and they're doing a physical release, which is really cool.
Yeah. So the digital version of this comes out February 26th on Switch and Switch 2, which, you know, when you take into consideration that week has a game we're going to be talking about in the next segment, Resident Evil Requiem and Pokemon Day, that's going to be a busy week for this podcast.
Yeah, and Village and Biohazard
Yeah,
as well.
There's going to be a lot hitting the Switch eShop that week.
Yeah.
But we're going to take our first break of this episode, and when we get back, Wes and I are going to be talking 007 Legends and Resident Evil Requiem. We will be right back. we are back, and if you are a reader of Game Informer magazine, you learned this week that our next cover story is 007 First Light, which is the first James Bond video game since 2012. Comes from IO Interactive, the developer behind Hitman, and whether you realize it or not, it is also coming to Nintendo Switch 2. So we are going to spend part of the main segment talking about the experience of seeing the game in action, talking to the developers, visiting the studio out in Copenhagen. Wes, you have seen 007 First Light in action at Gamescom, right?
Yes, yeah. It was a behind closed doors preview of what I believe the showcase was last month, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I don't remember.
Got it. Yeah, and that is largely the same gameplay that I saw during this trip, but I got to see kind of an alternate route through part of it, and as well as a little bit of extra stuff for context on the front end of it. So basically, the stage that we saw took place in Slovakia. It's up in the mountains, and there's a chess championship happening at like this super nice, huge hotel. And you got to get up the mountain first, and like you're joined by two other 00 agents, recruits, because you play a young version of James Bond in this. Basically, like the whole thing that IO Interactive is doing with this game is they're rebooting the story of James Bond, and they're telling a story of a James Bond who has not yet earned his license to kill, and he's trying to join MI6, which is like, British secret intelligence. And, basically something happens at the beginning of the game known as the Iceland incident. And part of that is depicted on the Game Informer cover art. And what happens in that incident, I don't know what it is, aside from the fact in the art there is a helicopter crash and Bond appears to be emerging from that helicopter. So something goes down with that, and M takes note and wants to recruit him into MI6. The problem is the other 00 agents are about 6 months already into training. So he has to play catch up. And, we had a lot of really in-depth conversations about how they went about crafting their version of James Bond. And it's really fascinating because they're like the thing that they came to when they started watching all the movies and reading all the books and reading the comics is that he's a man defined by his experience, because he always knows what to do for the reason that he has seen everything, right? So he's been in every situation already. So no matter what pops up, he has an answer and he's able to remain calm and cool under pressure. What happens if you take that away? That's what they really had to dig into. And they came to like, he still has all that charm and he's able to use it, but it's not refined to the point that he's really truly able to weaponize it. So he may not even realize he's being like super charming to somebody or super cold to somebody and like remaining calm under pressure, but he is, right? Because that's who he is at his core, but he just doesn't have the control and weaponization of those personality traits. Similarly, he's not like his risk taking is not as calculated as an older James Bond is. It's more reckless, but it still is able to accomplish the same means, right? He's still able to get what he needs to get done, but he just has to be a lot more on the fly about it. So that was really interesting to hear them like dive into like, oh, this wasn't just like a more brash, lighthearted version of James Bond. They actually dug into like each individual trait and be like, all right, how would inexperience and youth impact this part of Bond's character? How would it impact this part of Bond's character? How would that evolve over the course of, the story that they are telling, which is serving as his origin story? And like, I asked, because if we'll get to this actually when we get to like the run through of what this demo was. But like there's stuff that happens that is going to alter his perspective in like probably change the way he's going to approach future things, which is interesting. So the first part is you're in a car riding up the mountains with your fellow 00 recruits, and you're tracking 009, who is, a former MI6 agent, and he's kind of gone off the grid, and he used to be one of the better agents at MI6, but now he's kind of doing stuff on his own. He's off the reservation, like kind of acting in his own best interest. So they're tracing him and like trying to figure out what he's up to. So they follow him to this chess tournament, and the James his task is to just be the driver and pose as like a driver and watch the perimeter, stay in the car is basically his directive. And that lasts all of like 1 minute. And then he sees like a suspicious bellhop dumping like a bag of luggage, and he's like, something's off about that guy. I'm going to follow him. So in the state of play, and I'm presuming the demo that you saw, Wes, like Bond like observed his environment, and then he noticed like, okay, well, I can like distract this guard. And then so he uses like a gadget, like he has like a way, like, so that the gadgets are like smoke bombs and lasers that can blind enemies or like unlock doors, or his phone can shoot a dart that's like a poison dart, and it makes whatever you hit get sick. So he shoots the dart at one of the guards. They go over to the corner to throw up. And then while they're doing that, he was able to go grab a lighter that the guy had just sitting on like the ledge next to him. I guess he was smoking or something. And Bond takes that lighter, goes over, lights a wheelbarrow full of stuff on fire. That distracts another guard who comes over, and then Bond drops down and then climbs into a window to get into the place. So that's like the way that it was for the public demo. For my demo, basically Bond walks around this courtyard and he sees somebody talking on a phone, and he eavesdrops on this person, which is one of the tasks or one of the skills that Bond has in the game. You can eavesdrop on people. And he hears her say, hey, there's a whistleblower that's actually going to be at this tournament. We had to get them a fake press badge. We hid it in one of the flower pots. So look in the flower pot and you'll be able to get in. And so Bond immediately on the UI, it highlights all the flower pots. So you have all of the information that Bond has kind of right at your fingertips. You don't have to go into the menu and flip through like screens and everything to be like, oh, what was that other hint that you heard? It kind of surfaces that stuff, which I really like, because that, you know, one of Bond's big traits is he's able to think on his feet. So that gives you the ability as a player to think on your feet in that way too. So in the demo, the person goes over and goes into the flower pot, retrieves it, and then they're able to just kind of walk right into the event through the media entrance. So that was a cool way to see how that works. And then like, you know, just walking past, like wearing his badge, walking past like the maids and everything. Nobody's alerted because you look like you belong there because you have the badge and you're walking through like confidently the way Bond does. So he gets through, and you know, you have to figure out where this blonde bellhop went because you're trying to track this person, but you also at the same time have to avoid your coworkers or colleagues because they think you're out there guarding it. And they gave you an order to stay at the car. And basically Bond goes up to the bartender, and because he's like, well, everybody knows the bartender's going to know stuff. Like he hears everything. Everybody's talking to him, whatever. People go there for drinks to complain. And so he goes there, gets information about where the blonde bellhop went. And, you know, there's also ways you can go about, like you can pose as a photographer. You can do all kinds of stuff to get access to the backstage area. And the bartender's like, oh, I would leave that guy alone. Like he seems to know something about this bellhop. And Bond goes, oh, I just want to talk to him. Nothing dramatic. And then it cuts forward. It says inevitably. And my demo also jumped forward. They loaded a new save file. And basically 009 is peeling out of the parking lot, and Bond has to jump into another car and hotwire it to chase him. So obviously something dramatic happened. I asked IO if they could give me any information about like what happened during that segment. And Hakan Abrick, who is the CEO of IO, but also the game director of this game, basically said like he won't tell me what happened, but it can be a pretty substantial slice of gameplay that the thing that happens permanently alters Bond's trajectory in his life. So it's something that is going to set him down the path to becoming the James Bond that we all know and love. So I don't know what that could be, but it does ignite a chase between him and 009. And we see that kind of like signature coldness of Bond, even though I wouldn't say like he's like Nathan Drake. That was my concern when they're like, hey, we're doing young James Bond. I'm like, is he going to be quipping like every 5 seconds like Drake does? But no, that's not what we get. Instead, we do get like kind of like that steely glare that he has in the movies. Like basically he's hotwiring this car. It's an Aston Martin car to chase 009. And this woman gets in the car, like he doesn't know, and she just goes looking for these and holds up the keys to the car, and he, without even missing a beat, he gets the car started with his own hot wiring and just looks at her like, I didn't need your help. Like
Yeah.
it was such a perfect execution of like, just like kind of like a little bit of smug cockiness that you expect with James Bond. And that was the moment that I was like, okay, this is like a Bond that yes, it's a younger version, yes, it's a more lighthearted, it's not nearly as cold, but the that vibe is absolutely there. And they did a fantastic job showcasing that throughout the car chase, because the woman's like, oh my god, you gotta cut through this field because you're gonna lose him, he's got too much of a head start, and he's just like, be careful what you wish for, and cuts through it, and it's like, jumping off cliffs and stuff like that. And it very calm under pressure. He's drifting around the corners, and like, I asked IO like, hey, what was the process like for bringing like actual driving mechanics to life in this game, because you are the one controlling the car. Like, it's not like some like on rails situation. You are controlling the car. And there's also like actual combat encounters, as opposed to like the Hitman franchise, which they're best known for, where it's like your mission is to avoid combat in most scenarios in Hitman. So the combat in Hitman is kind of like a worst case scenario, like you've been discovered, you need to shoot the people who saw you and then slip into the shadows and hope nobody else can find you. This, you have to be more direct with both the combat and like the way you approach encounters. So with that, they were like, yeah, we brought in a lot of outside talent to help us like really nail the shooting mechanics, really nail the driving mechanics. But also, like, we've done that stuff in a lot of the prototypes that we've made of like games that just never came and saw the light of day. We had driving mechanics in some of those games, but he did Hakan Abrick also did say, like, there's a big difference between a fully developed game and a prototype. So we still, used the full like 6.5 years of development time that this game has had to really make sure we were nailing like the feeling of gunplay, the feeling of using your gadgets, the feeling of driving and like drifting around corners. So after that sequence, there's an airfield shootout where you get to see like some of that combat stuff, and it's really satisfying how destructible the environments appear to be. Like, like cars are exploding, bridges are collapsing as like fireballs erupt. Like, you can tackle an enemy off of like a ledge and like land on them to like cushion your fall, but also take them out. You can strip enemies of their weapons. The enemies will like, if you have a weapon, like say you have a shotgun and you're shooting at enemies, you run out of ammunition, you can actually throw the gun at the enemy to
Cool.
like be on the offense and like not be completely helpless, but like disarming enemies and stuff like that. Like, you have a lot of tools at your disposal that you would expect to have in control of James Bond. And all of it feels so at home in like this universe. Like by the time I finished this gameplay demo, which I watched several times, it really did feel like the opening scene of like a Casino Royale, which, the Casino Royale opening scene is one of the greatest opening scenes, I think, of any action movie. Yeah. And this felt right at home next to that, because like then you have to board a plane, you have to commandeer a vehicle to catch up to the plane. A big set piece moment is climbing up on the wing, then fighting a few enemies, and then jumping in, and then you hack the controls, and then have to tilt the plane back and forth to like cause as much turbulence as possible. And then like Bond realizes that he caused too much turbulence because the only way out is now to jump out, but he doesn't have a parachute, so he has to skydive and catch up to an enemy. And that's like the difference between like the older James Bond and the younger James Bond that they were talking about, because they were like, yeah, the older James Bond probably would have known where a parachute was, whereas the younger James Bond is going to jump out of a plane because that's the best way to catch the bad guy, but he might not have every single point mapped out. Like, he doesn't know where that parachute's coming. He's just like, I know I've got to get a parachute before I hit the ground. So that was the end of it right there. But like, yeah, it was just fascinating to dig into, how these developers of the Hitman franchise craft a puzzle-like experience and then display it to the user as a stealth game, right? Because at the end of the day, like a stealth sequence is little more than a puzzle experience.
Yeah.
and it's so cool to like really dive in with them on that topic, and then like also like the topic of how they found their version of Bond in like this younger character, and like what is going to happen going forward. I also got an exclusive conversation with Hakan about Mauritania, which is the area where Lenny Kravitz's character Balma is, and like that seems like it's going to be a pretty massive sandbox area, more so than the one that we've seen on the gameplay demos. But really, they want players to approach this however they want. Like there are scripted sequences, obviously, but like a lot of the areas, like even with like the gadget loadouts, like you are given like all these gadgets, you get to choose which ones you want to use in which situations. So like they really are playing into like the sandbox elements of Hitman, which I would say are their best. That's their strength. So I'm glad that they're playing into that. But
Yeah.
Wes, how did you feel coming away from that demo? Because it seems like we saw a lot of the similar stuff, but I was super impressed. How about you?
Yeah, I was super impressed. The biggest thing going into that demo before we had seen much of the game was I really liked the Hitman games, but I didn't want James Bond to be a Hitman type of game. Like I wanted more scripted sequences. I wanted like I didn't want it to be like none of the wackiness that can be in the Hitman games, because I like James Bond as like a suave ladies man, always knows what to do, always knows how to get out of a situation. And of course, I knew that this isn't going to be the complete package yet, because this is the man before Bond. But I came out of that preview very impressed with what I saw and happy that it's not just Hitman with a James Bond skin. They're obviously using their talents and their stealth pedigree to create something unique for Bond, but I think it works and it makes sense here. But I like that it's not just like, all right, we're going to put you on the hotel level and you got to figure everything out on your own. I like that it's very clearly guiding you towards a narrative driven adventure, which I enjoy. That's the thing I most want out of this, is a not linear, but just like something that's like narrative heavy, which the Hitman games have never been. They've been about creating your own stories. I don't want to create my own story. I want to experience IO's James Bond story.
Yeah, and here's a quote from the CEO. He told me, Delphi, this company that originally brokered the deal between MGM and Eon Productions and IO Interactive to make this come true. So Hakan said, we were doing our own IPs and it wasn't in our vicinity or our thoughts to use somebody else's IP, but Delphi contacted us about this opportunity saying, you've done globetrotting agent fantasy for all these years. There hasn't been a Bond game for all these years. What do you say? And then he goes on to say, I think if you had come to us with 99.99% of other IPs, we would have been like, nah, we're busy with our own stuff. But I think there was something that sparked this motion that, yes, it's true, there hasn't been a Bond game for such a long time. That's one thing. The other thing was, we probably have been training for this unknowingly for many, many years. And I think that's true, because so much of that Hitman DNA, it's not like, okay, this is just Hitman with a Bond skin, but so much of that DNA is absolutely present in everything that we've seen.
Yeah. I mean, I play the Hitman games like they're James Bond games. Like I don't really interact with the more silly or zany or kind of out there aspects of what Hitman can do. Like I keep it very quick, clean, and professional in those games, because I don't know, if you give me a globe-trotting agent with a bunch of tools at his disposal, the thing I default to is James Bond and or Ethan Hunt. Like it is what it is, and I'm very excited for this game.
Yeah, I am as well. It's coming to Switch 2 and every other major platform May 27th. So, I mean, I know I have that date circled on my calendar at this point after seeing an extended demo and talking to the developers and like getting their philosophy. GoldenEye was such a huge game for me. I know you liked Agent Under Fire, but like, the Bond franchise used to be nearly as synonymous with video games as it was in movies.
Yeah.
For a good chunk of the 90s and early 2000s, that was the case, but it fell off after 007 Legends back in 2012, and MGM and Eon revoked the license from Activision because they just weren't satisfied.
Yeah.
And it seemed like they were really hesitant because if they were just licensing it out, they just didn't want to do it with Activision anymore, somebody else would have picked that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seemed like they were waiting for like just the right fit. And I mean, this is
Found it.
IO Interactive firing on all cylinders. You know, they're coming off of the World of Assassination trilogy, which I think, even though I love Hitman Blood Money, I am a defender of Hitman Absolution. The Kane and Lynch games are pretty fun. I don't think there's anything else in their catalog that even comes close to the level of quality and like just high level design that Hitman 1, 2, and 3, this World of Assassination trilogy accomplishes.
Yeah, agreed. I'm a little wary of the Switch 2 edition just because when the Switch 2 launched, I played a bunch of the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games for a feature here at Game Informer. And Hitman, specifically 3, was probably one of the tougher games to have running on Switch 2. Like, it was very clear that there were some compromises and some performance issues. Again, that's just a quick, like, little port type of situation, whereas I presume they've been doing a little more ground up work on this for the Switch 2 version. So I'm hoping it runs a little better, but I will be curious to see how this game performs on Switch 2.
Yeah, I think I saw a PC build. It may have been a PS5 build. I can't quite recall. But yeah, it definitely was not a Switch 2 build. But
Yeah.
it does seem as though IO had Switch 2 dev kits early.
Okay, nice. That's good.
In talking with them, I believe they did tell me that they were one of the development studios
One of
that
the few.
received a dev kit before launch.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's because they have a major game that's coming out just over a year after launch. So,
Yeah.
But Wes, we're going to pivot now to the second game that we want to talk about on this main segment. You had a chance to go hands-on with one of the other big multi-platform games that I think a lot of people are forgetting is coming to Switch 2, and that is Resident Evil Requiem. Can you talk me through your impressions of this latest game from Capcom?
Yeah, so I went to LA earlier this month to play about 3 hours of Requiem. It was not the beginning of the game, but it was near the beginning. It starts, you start as Leon, which was kind of like the big reveal of this preview, is like finally getting to play a Leon after the industry's worst kept secret was revealed. And he's something's wrong with him, like he needs medical help, and so he arrives at this like therapeutic medical care facility that's been in trailers. I don't think it's in Raccoon City, or maybe it's on the outskirts, because it's like very well put together. It does not appear to be in a city that has been nuked 30 years ago. And he goes in there and he's getting checked out, and very quickly things start to go haywire and zombies appear, and Leon pulls out his gun and does what Leon does, and that is just starts blasting zombies in the head. This was a very overwhelming segment. There was like 15 zombies at once in this little section. It was like kind of like a big, like an office almost. Lots of desks and computers and office chairs and fake plants. And one of them has a chainsaw, and they come running at you. Obviously, you're going to shoot the one with the chainsaw first, and they drop the chainsaw. This is my favorite part of the preview, is the chainsaw starts spinning on the ground wildly out of control. A zombie stumbles towards it and loses a leg in the process, and blood and guts just kind of go squirting everywhere. And that zombie falls to the ground, and now he's like stumbling towards you, which is very cool. Very cool to see that kind of like physics interaction. And then even cooler, Leon can go pick up the chainsaw. I took damage because it was still spinning. I did not think that through, but you can pick up the chainsaw and then use it as a weapon. And he swings it like over his head like a dang axe. He jabs it into enemies. You really can eviscerate the zombies you come across. And limbs are flying off. Blood is going everywhere. It's like probably the bloodiest Resident Evil has ever been.
Oh wow!
Is this specific gameplay sequence? And it was awesome. It was really, really cool. And you feel very powerful. Leon is fast. He is roundhouse kicking zombies. It's a room of 15 zombies, which in most Resident Evil sequences would be pretty much guaranteed death. Like, that's a lot of zombies to fight, and you probably don't even have the ammo for it. But this is Leon S. Kennedy, now in his like 40s or something, I think, or maybe even early 50s. I don't remember. And you can feel it. You can feel that he has gone through the events of 2 and 4 and all his other adventures on Netflix and whatnot. And it's awesome. Like, you feel powerful, and you feel like you want to feel in a scary place like this. And then as he's escaping further into the medical care facility, he runs into Grace Ashcroft. I'm being a little vague because we can't spoil too much, and I also don't want to spoil
Yeah,
much.
we don't want to spoil it either. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Pretty strict embargo as far as narrative elements go, but he runs into Grace Ashcroft. Some things happen, and then you switch perspectives, and now you are Grace, which Leon's gameplay was in third person. Grace's was in first person here. I switch back and forth. I feel that Leon is best for third person because that's just how you've always interacted with Leon. Like, that's how I know Leon. And I think Grace's section really benefited in first person because, unlike Leon, hers is less about action and more about like the tension and the horror happening in this game. That said, I spoke to director Koshi Nakanishi and asked him, was that intentional? Like, why did you guys place those viewpoints on this, knowing that we can switch back and forth? And he basically said, when you start the game, it's going to say, hey, how do you want to play Leon, first or third, and how do you want to play Grace? So there really is nothing to glean from there. It's really up to you. After playing, though, I do feel that that was the correct choice. Like, first person Grace feels like mechanically and structurally, her section felt like Resident Evil 2, like walking through the police station, solving these random obscure puzzles, finding keys, unlocking different parts, going deeper, kind of like a Metroidvania little segment. And ammo's low, you're using every bullet, blah, blah, blah. But then because it's in first person and because there's some truly terrifying sequences, it felt very much like RE7 and RE8, but specifically RE7, like the intro where you meet the Baker family and or you join their dinner party and all that. And yeah, it's really scary. There's the gameplay is very familiar. Like, they're not doing anything drastically different here. Leon's section felt like the RE4 remake. Grace's section feels like RE2 remake or RE7, RE8, that first person gameplay. Slow, methodical, finding keys and that kind of thing. There are some new things that they're doing, which is really cool. There's like a new, I don't remember the official term for it, but it's like a blood synthesis crafting system. So you have this little thing, like machine you carry with you, and after you kill a zombie, you can inject it, or you can stab them with this thing and pull out some of their blood. And you can craft new things. Like, you can craft bullets and mix it with the blood to create like super powerful bullets, or you can mix it with herbs to create more powerful vaccines to inject yourself with. And you can even create this thing, I don't remember the name of it, but it's like a purple vaccine, and you can sneak up behind zombies and stab them with it, and it like makes them explode. And you want to make them explode because a lot of these zombies have the crimson head mechanic where after you kill them, they can come back later with a metastasized weird tumor growth thing that they're even more dangerous. And this prevents them from doing that. Also, after you kill any zombie, you can just stab them with that and blow up their head. That way they don't turn into the crimson head. They're not crimson heads. I know that's what they're called in previous games. I don't know what they are here, but that's what I'm calling them for now. So that's really cool. And I liked it because typically, especially in more horror sequences of RE, I'll shoot who I have to and run from the rest. This is kind of making me rethink what I'm running from, because it's like, I could run and maybe I won't encounter them again, or I could take them out here, use their blood to create something that's going to help me in the future. And I really liked that. And I was healing a lot. There's a lot of zombies in this section, so it was nice to take advantage of that. Another thing that's really cool that I mostly saw in the Grace section, you can kind of see in the Leon section I played, is the zombies have memories. Like, they retain a bit of what they once were. So they're not just like stumbling around trying to eat brains or whatever. Like, they are in the kitchen cooking because that's what they were doing before they turned. They're in the bathroom cleaning up the floor with a mop because that's what they were doing. And it's very clear they're still zombies. Like, I wasn't like surprised by any of them, but it's really cool to see them doing something different and knowing that, okay, they're cutting up something in the kitchen. I can probably sneak by them if I don't get in their field of view. And I really like that. Let me think. If there's
because one of them was like this giant like butcher character, right?
Yes. Yeah, he's kind of like a stalking character, not like a Mr. X or Nemesis or anything, but he has like his own little section within the care facility that he'll stalk around if he spots you. But you can also just sneak right by him if you pay attention to his path and what he's doing in the kitchen, and that was really cool.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it almost reminded me of the I forget her actual name, but like Lady D, the tall
Lady D was
vampire
awesome.
lady
Yeah. Yes.
from Village.
Yeah, kind of like her. And yeah, there's like story stuff which I'm not even allowed to mention, but I wouldn't want to spoil again.
Sure.
And then we switch back to Leon, and after 2 hours of very tense, like horror filled gameplay where I'm like sweating holding this controller with Grace, you switch back to Leon, and he's in like an attic type of thing. I don't know if it was an attic, but it seemed like an attic. And there's just a giant monstrosity of a thing in there, like very large, pus filled, like blistering monstrosity that's like trying to kill you. And they just give you like shotgun ammo, grenades, all kind of stuff. And you just get to go like full out on this guy, which is really nice. It's a very smart and intentional release of tension after doing what you just did for 2 hours with Grace. Now it's like, go be Leon, kick some butt. Don't worry about your health. Just shoot and shoot and shoot and take this thing down. And I really enjoyed that. It's a very smart use of, it's a very smart balance of tension and horror. Obviously, they're going to have to keep that up over the entire game. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. Like, that's probably the biggest challenge they've had to address with this is you are mixing two disparate types of gameplay. Arguably, the two types of gameplay that RE fans like most, the RE4 action of RE4 and the slow, methodical horror of RE2, and putting into one game. And so to make that work, you're going to have to balance that. And that remains to be seen if they'll do it for the entire game. But if these 3 hours were any indication, that they're on the right path. This is my most anticipated game of the year by far now because of this preview. I was pretty sad that it ended. I just wanted to keep playing.
That's always the mark of a good like pre-release demo from our perspective, because we get to play so many games early, but it's always like these kind of like segmented, like way too short sequences. And every once in a while we get these in-depth sequences like this, where you got to play 3 hours of it. And some of the time that you get to the end of that and you're like, okay, it's over. I can do my work, like excited to just write about this. And like that was enough to whet my appetite.
Yeah.
The fact that you wanted to keep playing and you were like, yeah, give me more of this immediately. That bodes really well. What were your thoughts on the last two Resident Evil games, the Village and 7?
Yeah, so funny enough, this is something I touched on in my preview. There's a lot of weird and strange and unique complementary things happening narratively in RE Requiem so far in these 3 hours that have me intrigued. But that's like Resident Evil's biggest weakness as a franchise is like the things that I find fun and strange and unique and interesting in the first half, more than often not, like sputter out in the second half. Like the first halves of RE games are always so much more enjoyable to me. And I think I feel that way very much so about especially 7. Like I really think the back half of 7 pales in comparison to the first half. And then RE8 as well. Like I think RE8 does a better job, but you start off with the two best sequences in recent RE memory with Lady D's castle and then House Beneviento. And then you got to go to like a little marsh swamp and then you go to a factory and it's just not as interesting to me. And so like as excited as I am about Requiem and experiencing this Raccoon City Police Department like medical facility, I'm worried that like for all the fun I'm having now, the second half of this game, I'm going to be underground in some lab again, doing something off the wall that doesn't really match the tone of that first half. So like really enjoyed 7 and 8. I feel the pain of those two games as second halves going into Requiem. Like it's cautious optimism because like these 3 hours, if I'm judging the game on these 3 hours, incredible. Could be the best RE game of all time. But like if you're an RE fan, you know you can't do that. Like you need to see what's going on in the second half to judge an RE game.
Well, we have less than a month until this game comes out, Wes. So I know you're excited for it. I'm getting more excited for it, even though I haven't even touched Resident Evil Village.
Really? You should do
I'd
that.
like to, but like, there's a million games I need to play, and that is one of them.
Yeah. That one's. But, if you started it, you'd finish it because it's hard to put down. It's very fun.
I bet that's true. But all three of those games, Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil Village, and Resident Evil Requiem, come to Switch 2 on February 27th. So if you're a Resident Evil fan who hasn't, for whatever reason, played those games and you want them on your Switch, like for some reason Capcom's not spacing them out and just throwing them all on the eShop at once. I mean, those, I know 7, but maybe Village are already on original Switch, but they're cloud versions. These are the native versions coming to Switch 2.
They're going to be much better, I imagine. And I think now you can play all mainline entries on Switch. Not Remake, actually. Wait,
you can't? No, I don't think
you can't play 4 Remake, but the original's on Switch, I believe.
Yes, the original's on Switch. Can you play 2 and 3?
Maybe not the originals.
Well, you can't play the remakes because they're only on PS, Xbox, and PC.
Oh no, they do have the Remake as a cloud game on Switch.
Which remake?
3. So I bet they have 2 as well.
Oh, yeah, maybe they do. Yeah, Resident Evil 3 Cloud. I did not even know that was on there.
Yeah, how about that? That's really cool. And then I know you can play 0 on Switch. 1 is on Switch. I imagine 2 is. So yeah, it makes. I mean, they're completing the timeline, which is cool. But there's also the controller, the Pro 2 controller coming out, which is not my cup of tea, but whatever, you know. And then I'm most excited to see what the amiibo are. They have not announced who or what they will be, but they are making Requiem amiibo.
Yeah, and they're also doing a Pragmata amiibo. So it seems like Capcom is getting into the amiibo business now. Yeah. Just 15 years too late. But there's a Resident Evil Generation Pack that is $90, and it gets you access to Resident Evil 7 Biohazard with all the DLC, Resident Evil Village with all the DLC, and then Resident Evil Requiem.
Oh, that's actually a great deal.
That is a fantastic deal.
It's $70 for Requiem, and then
$90
more
for
dollars
the whole
get
thing.
you. That's actually a really great deal. Yeah, I would.
How much is Resident Evil 7 going to? Or let's see how much Resident Evil Village is going to cost. It does not seem to say how much it's going to cost on Switch 2. It just says releases February 27th, 2026 on the eShop. So I don't know.
The cloud version of 7 on Switch is $40.
That's the cloud version, though. We don't know what the pricing of the native versions are going to be.
Probably more, though, right? You would presume.
I mean, maybe if the full bundle for all 3 games plus DLC is $90, that would be weird if they were
honestly, if I was buying Requiem on Switch 2, I would just buy that bundle. For $20 more, you get access to the 2 other games.
Yeah.
So that's a really good deal. Good for them.
That is.
What do you think the amiibo is going to be? You think it's going to be Leon or
it's got to be Leon, right?
Yeah, that would make the most sense.
I
And
mean,
now we know they're doing vehicles because of Viola.
Oh.
Metroid Prime 4. It could be Leon and his custom Porsche.
Could be. Although then they have to get licensed for Porsche.
The first $100 amiibo.
Oh, God. But yeah, Resident Evil Requiem coming to Switch 2 alongside Village and 7 on February 27th. So we'll probably have a big episode that day because that also has Pokemon Day, plus some of the other stuff we talked about in the news segment. But Wes, before we get you out of here, where can people find you online?
You can find me mostly on Blue Sky these days at wesleyleblanc.bsky.social, whatever it is. I don't know. Search my name on Blue Sky and it's there. And yeah, otherwise I try to stay offline because, the world. The
world's a lot right now.
Yeah, the world's a lot right now. I got to stop doom scrolling. Need to go outside and see the sun. So you can follow me on Blue Sky though. Yeah, lots of.
Thankfully, you're in Florida, so you can touch grass. Whereas
my
Minnesota,
grass is still green and alive.
Touch snow.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining me. We are going to take one last break this episode, and when we return, we will get the segment that was promised last week, all about Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade on Switch 2. Plus, we'll talk about Dispatch. We will be right back. We are back, and now that the Switch 2 is providing a lot more power than its predecessor, we are seeing all kinds of ports that just flat out wouldn't work on the Switch 1 make their way over to the Switch 2. But even with the extra horsepower, some of them are still pretty obviously the worst way to play the game. The most recent of these high-profile games to arrive on Switch 2 is Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. I'm now joined by another Game Informer colleague who has put several hours into this Switch 2 port. It is the once prophesized Kyle Hilliard. Kyle, I know we're a week late, but welcome back to All Things Nintendo. How are you doing?
Doing okay. Decent. That's the best way to put it. Were you like coming up next as Kyle last week or something? And then you're like,
yeah, and then
scheduling
conflict happened, and
sorry,
yeah, it's
Minnesota's
all
on fire. My dog had to get emergency surgery. All kinds of fun stuff going on in my life. Everyone's life, yeah.
Yeah, it's a chaotic time in the lives of a lot of people, especially those of us who live in Minnesota. But we are here now, and we are excited to talk about a couple of games, because it's not just Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade we are going to be talking about this final segment. It's also another game by the name of Dispatch that hit Switch 2 this week that we will be touching on to wrap up this week's episode of All Things Nintendo. But Kyle, let's start with Final Fantasy VII Remake. This game originally came out in 2020 on PlayStation 5. I think PlayStation 4. Goodness gracious. Yeah, it was right. It was early 2020. So it was before PS5 was even out. You're right. Good catch there. But came out exclusively on PlayStation. It eventually made its way to PC. And I think that the PC release may have coincided with the Intergrade release that came to PS as well.
Yeah, and then that was like the PS5 port with added content. Yeah, it's a little complicated.
Now, last week is when it came out on Switch 2, and I believe Xbox Series X also got it,
yes.
Or maybe just Xbox in general.
Yeah.
The generations have gotten very confusing lately.
Oh, yeah.
But the remake Intergrade includes the base game, the intermission DLC, which adds an episode starring Yuffie, who's actually a main party member in Rebirth, which is the sequel to this. Plus, it includes like several weapons, armors, accessories, summoning materia, and all that stuff.
There's also
one of my favorite games of 2020. So, what else were you gonna say?
I was gonna say there's also like modes where you can kind of like drop it down to like super easy, and you get like the best weapons, and you won't die, and every hit you do does like 99,999 damage, like, and you get tons of currency. Like, it's just a way to be like, you interested in this game? You want to see the sort of amazing cutscenes in the story? Here's a version where you don't even have to think about the combat, which is like, I don't take advantage of those options ever, really, but like, I love that they exist. It's like, I love that it's just like, yeah, you can just play this game for the story exclusively if you want. And when you press square, you get a bunch of flashy lights, and that's a great time,
Yeah, and I mean, it's great for, I had my dad. I had him playing God of War, like the 2018 reboot, because I thought he would enjoy the story. And he was just playing it on like the story mode, and it allowed him to get through, a decent chunk of the game. He eventually did get lost in like kind of the exploration parts of that. But like, for people like us, where we play a lot of games, like, maybe a one-hit kill against all enemies isn't like the most engaging thing, but we're not the only people who are playing video games. Video games are such a widespread hobby at this point that like, you have to have modes like that to attract a wider net of people that, whether they're little kids or maybe people like older people who haven't played video games in a long time. Like, that's a win. Like, I hate the gatekeeping of like, oh, why do you have an easy mode on this game, when it's like, you don't have to choose it. You don't have to choose the easy mode.
I think easy modes aren't easy enough, honestly. Like, like they should, like Claire Obscure's easy mode, like, was still a pretty fun challenge and enjoyable, but it's like, nah, man, just make a, like, you just never take damage or something.
I mean, there are certainly games that have those modes, and I think that's
absolutely
great. Like, just, either give it like a god mode where it's like, yeah, you can make it through if you just want to see the story, especially like narrative driven games, like where it's like, I just want to experience this story because I've heard this story rocks. Like, yeah, you could go on YouTube and just watch like all the cutscenes, but that doesn't hit quite the same as like actually playing through it and getting the cutscenes in the order that you get through gameplay. But all that aside, Kyle, how does Final Fantasy VII Remake run on Switch 2?
Fantastic. Like, way better than I expected, right? Like, it's not the best version of Remake. That still belongs to PS5 and PC probably, but like, it is a totally beautiful, totally playable, consistent frame rate. It looks great. It doesn't feel diminished at all. And like I was really shocked. Like I was surprised at how stable and good it is, to the point where it's like really inspiring me to like or rather, not inspiring is the wrong word, but to be optimistic about like Switch 2 versions, you know? Because like it still is ultimately my preferred platform given the choice, right? It is still where I will always go to play indie games because I just like the flexibility of screen versus handheld. Like I play a lot of handheld gaming, so I love that. But like, you know, we've all had, you know, if you play a lot of Switch and you're a Nintendo podcast, like you have played those ports where you're like, ooh, this is rough. And it was like, it got worse and worse into the Switch's lifespan and stuff like that. So I did have that sort of pessimistic perspective booting up Final Fantasy VII Remake. And it was like truly, you know, from that opening cutscene of the train and that first little combat sort of interaction, it was like, oh, wow, this is great. I could totally replay this in full and be completely satisfied with this on Switch 2. Like I was really surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder if they could continue putting the Remake trilogy games on Switch 2, because Square Enix has flat out said like, yeah, we kind of want to shift away from doing like exclusive games because it makes it so that it really undercuts like the sales numbers and it makes it so we don't hit our projections. But Rebirth is such a more drastic like leap up in terms of like resource demands, because it's like an open world instead of like the more linear like hallways that we see in Remake. Like, do
and
you
it
think
is
it's
a
running
PlayStation
well
5
enough?
game, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's like, what does it even mean? I suppose ultimately, but like, am I playing the PlayStation 4 game on my Switch 2? You know, I don't really know. It doesn't really work that way per se. But yeah, I don't know if Rebirth will. And I will say, despite all my sort of positive feelings about it and like saying nice things about the Switch 2, I will say shortly after that I booted up Assassin's Creed Shadows, and that kind of gave me the old school like Switch port. Like, ooh, this feels rough. This feels muddy. I can see the pixels. The frame rate is much lower. I was able to. The nice thing was, since I was logged into like my Ubisoft account or whatever on the platform I originally played it and on my Switch, it literally grabbed my save without me doing anything. Like I didn't
God,
have
that's
to
so
log
good.
in. I didn't have to like. I just booted up the game and I was like, yeah, you played like 8 hours of this over on Xbox. Here you go. You can jump right back in. So that's cool. But like, that game, which is like a contemporary, you know, that only came out on PlayStation 5 and Series X and stuff, that one was was rougher, right? Like that one didn't quite hold up as well as Remake. So yeah, so that, which leads me to think like, yeah, I don't know, maybe Rebirth would kind of struggle a little bit. I don't know, I'm not sure.
It's weird because like we're seeing such a giant gap between like the performance that we're getting on some of these like third party ports. Like, you know, we have Cyberpunk runs phenomenally well. Street Fighter 6 runs pretty well. Like I was playing Street Fighter 6 with my buddy when I was traveling a couple weeks ago, and I brought my Switch 2 and we just threw it in his dock and we were playing Street Fighter 6, and I was like, wow, this plays remarkably well for like
Yeah.
a supposedly underpowered console.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
then
and
you
like
get,
you mentioned Cyberpunk, it was a similar experience where it was like my save transferred, which was like cool. And then it was like, again, it was like, oh, this is much better than I expected it to be. That is another one that does have a PlayStation 4, Xbox One version, right? But those versions are, you know, famously terrible.
I
So,
think they've made some progress, but yeah, like they're
yeah,
still
that
not
PlayStation
as
4
good.
version got recalled. Like,
Yeah.
like,
But like, yeah, then you look at things like, you know, Borderlands and Elden Ring are very much struggling to get out the door. Like they delayed both of them basically indefinitely because they couldn't get
yeah.
the performance the way it needs to be.
Yeah, early
And
people were playing Elden Ring, I think, at Gamescom, right? And it was a lot of like, ooh, you know,
PAX West as
grimacing
well.
emoji. Like,
Yeah, like the name of that edition is the Tarnished Edition, and from what the performance would indicate, that seems like a pretty good name for that, because it seems like not a great version of Elden Ring, which is maybe good that they are definitely good that they delayed it, because, you know, one of the greatest games of all time, certainly one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time. If you're going to bring it to your system and have it be like a big tentpole release, you want it to run reasonably well. Like,
Mhm.
and that's a game that you can't have a whole lot of input lag. And it seems like the input lag of the Switch 2 version of Elden Ring was pretty terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll
I
see
mean,
about that one.
so Final Fantasy VII Remake as a concept, just in case people only play Nintendo games and who are listening to this podcast and don't have any
They
clue.
stopped playing Final Fantasy after 6.
Yeah. So it's basically, just like a modernized version of Final Fantasy VII. It is split into 3 parts. So Final Fantasy VII Remake is the first part of that retelling of the entire story of the original Final Fantasy VII. So this is just the Midgar section where you're inside the city, and that's the portion that you play of Final Fantasy VII Remake. But it's not just like how long does it take in the original, like 6 hours to get through like the content
Yeah.
depicted in this. It's like a full like 30 to 50 hour RPG in Remake. So they fleshed out a whole lot of stuff. The cutscenes are obviously phenomenal compared to the originals. I
Yeah.
mean, all the graphics are, but they
I mean,
also
it is an unequivocal remake, right? Like today, that term gets thrown around a lot in ways that are like, well, what is a remake versus a remaster? Like, where this is, I mean, it's called remake, and it's like, oh, well, this is undeniably. There's no version of Final Fantasy VII running in the background of
yeah, they
remake.
changed the vision of the
Yes.
game. Like,
Yeah.
the combat is completely different. It's modernized where it's like kind of half action based, half turn based, and then there's so much more content in terms of the story. The all the characters are voiced fully. The visuals are modernized. I mean, they're completely overhauled, obviously, but it's just a completely different game that
Mhm.
loosely follows the story of the first like 6 hours of Final Fantasy VII. It is a completely separate experience. Some of the story is even changed, which
A lot of
was
the story, I would
kind of the
argue.
chagrin
Yeah.
of a lot of Final Fantasy VII diehards who are just hoping to like retell the story of Final Fantasy VII in a modern setting, because this kind of diverges in a lot of ways over the course of the story, and like adds boss fights, adds characters. It's a completely different experience, and like I said at the start of this segment, Final Fantasy VII Remake was one of my favorite games of 2020. It probably would have been my favorite game of 2020 had Ghost of Tsushima not come out that
Mhm.
that same year. Like it's that good. Like I love this trilogy of games now that we're 2 entries through it, and I think I may prefer Rebirth just a little bit, but that doesn't mean to take away anything from Remake. They're completely
Yeah.
different experiences as well from each other. Like Remake is very much like, there's moderate exploration like within these small environments, but for the most part you are on a point A to point B trajectory, whereas Rebirth just opens it up and gives you huge open biomes to explore and so much more freedom and
Yeah, and just
all
do the
that stuff.
same things over and over within them.
Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
critiques to the open world of Rebirth,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but
No, I like Rebirth a lot. I prefer Remake between the two myself, but I like them both for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I got sucked into the open world of Rebirth, but sadly, Rebirth is not on Switch 2 quite yet. But Remake, Intergrade, if they do decide to release all 3 of the parts of this Remake trilogy on Switch 2, I mean, it sounds like Remake Intergrade is a great entry point for people who maybe only have a Switch 2 and want to check this out for the first time.
This is not like the asterisks on this, are minimal. Like you are getting the full 7 remake experience playing on Switch 2, which is shocking and very cool.
Well, Kyle, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is available now on Switch 2, and if anybody listening to this wants to see it in action, you can actually head over to Game Informer's YouTube channel, where none other than Mr. Kyle Hilliard himself has a new gameplay today that you can see how the game runs for yourself.
Yeah.
And if you before you want to take the plunge and pick up this game on your Switch 2.
Yeah, it's pretty long. It was funny. I think I took like 40 minutes of footage for that, and we were like, yeah, we'll make like a little 10-15 minute video. People just kind of want to get a peek at this game. And then we ended up just talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake and everything around it for like 40 minutes. So it's a very thorough look at the game for sure.
It is so nice, like reliving so many of those iconic scenes. Like just the opening alone of Final Fantasy VII Remake just it hits so hard. Like especially if you played the original, like even if you're not a fan of the original, though, I do think it is probably my favorite Final Fantasy game since probably 10. Like it's been a full like 20.
Remake in particular is your favorite since 10, you think?
I think so. Like I liked 13 quite a bit, more than most people seemed to. I liked 15 a lot more than most people do, but I think I would take Remake and Rebirth over either of those. And it would take going back to like, what was it, 2001, 2002 when Final Fantasy X came out? Like, so it's like almost a full 25 years since a game in the Final Fantasy franchise that I liked as much as Rebirth and Remake. So definitely worth checking out. I give it a pretty wholehearted recommendation for any fan of Final Fantasy, whether you've played 7 or not.
Yeah, for sure.
But all right, before we wrap up, I do want to talk a little bit about Dispatch, since that is now available on Switch and Switch 2, both of them. It's available on both platforms if you have upgraded or not.
That's not that surprising, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty it's a pretty low resource ask, presumably. But it ended up being one of my favorite games of 2025. I did not expect to like this game as much as I did. And so it comes from Ad Hoc Studios, and it's basically a superhero workplace comedy, but in the style of like the old Telltale games. And when I heard that, I was like, I like superhero stuff. I like workplace comedies. Do I want to play a game that feels like it's episodic? So at first I was like, I don't want to do an episodic game because I feel like I was so soured by the Telltale formula and like the rollouts that they had. And I used to love the Telltale games, The Walking Dead Season 1 and Borderlands. What's their Borderlands?
Tales from the Borderlands.
Tales from the Borderlands. And their Batman Season 2. Those are phenomenal. Those are some of the best adventure games I've ever played. But when you get into like the year 2025 and now 2026, and you're like, hey, do you want to play a game that is like that kind of borrows that gameplay format? I'm like, not so much. Like, I don't know. Like I've kind of fallen out of love with that style. So I hesitated before jumping into this. So actually, when I played it on PS5 last year, and I was like, I kind of dragged my feet into it. Like I was like, oh, it looks cool. There's a lot of cool voice actors. One of my friends is a voice actor in the game. So I was like, oh, let me just check this out, I guess. And it basically puts you in the shoes of it's all like non like licensed superheroes. So it's not like you're playing as like Marvel or DC or whatever characters, but like you're basically like this universe's version of Iron Man, where you're a little guy who fits into like a big mech suit, and he basically his suit gets destroyed and he's trying to get back into the action, but in the meantime he's working at like this superhero agency that's basically like this kind of subscription service that you pay in this world, and if something goes wrong you can call superheroes to come and rescue you, and that's like the service that you pay for. And you're going through and you're navigating all these relationships that you form with these characters. There's two women in particular that like you start developing like kind of like romantic relationships with, or you can choose to. There's also this dispatch mini game that when I was looking into it, I was like, I just want to get the story. Can I skip the dispatch mini game? And I assumed there would be an option to allow you to just like skip that. I am so glad there was not an option, because I was ready to toggle that on, and like before I even started playing. That ended up being one of my favorite parts of this game. So it's almost like a real-time strategy like mini game where it's like you are the dispatcher, and they like crimes get called in across the city, and depending on what they are, you have to take your roster of heroes that are on your team and dispatch them out to these things. And like different things require different skill sets. So like if there's like hey, this building's on fire, we need to rescue the people inside, you would send somebody who has like high like damage tolerance or like defensive skills, so that way they can survive that and not like take burns or whatever. But if there's like, hey, armed robbers are taking on a bank, you want to send like a couple of superheroes who have like high attack skills so they can take them out. Or like, we got to stealthily infiltrate this enemy's base, you can send like, people who are more agile and like able to kind of be stealthy. So you're constantly balancing that, plus the fact that they all operate on a cooldown as well. So like if you send somebody out to a thing, they're going to be out of commission for like the next like 30 seconds or minute or whatever it is after they get back. But also you have to make sure that you're sending the right person for the job, because one, they could fail, or two, they could get injured and then they're out of commission for even longer. So I really fell into this mini game, and I was hoping that after I beat the story, there would be like an endless mode of this, because you're also constantly leveling up your heroes as you send them to stuff.
You really did like it, huh?
I really loved this mini game, and I would play like if they put out like just a $10 DLC content update, I would absolutely pay that. If it was like you can get an endless, like, even if there's no story attached to it, I would do that, because you also glean a lot of really cool like story elements during the dispatch thing, because like, they're basically coworkers in this agency, so they're having like workplace disputes in the middle of it, and like they're bouncing back and forth off each other and then like reacting to like you assigning them to certain things. Sometimes like they'll have attitude problems, because the slight spoiler here, the team you take over is a bunch of like reformed supervillains. So you're kind of in a tough spot where a lot of them have like attitude problems. So like, you're like, hey, go here. And like, they're like, I'm not going to that one. Sorry. Like, send somebody else.
Yeah.
So you also have to navigate around like kind of the egos in the group as well. So very, very fun on that. I was also hesitant about the animation, because I was so burned by like the Telltale, like lifeless puppet style. I don't know how else to call it, but like
it was looking rougher and rougher as time went on.
Yeah, like it was cool when like The Walking Dead season 1 came out, but by the time like, I don't know, like whatever the Tales from the Borderlands or like Minecraft story mode, I was like, yeah, I don't like this anymore. Like, this is not a thing that I'm about. But the animation style of this is gorgeous. Like, Dispatch just is one of the most beautiful games of last year. Like, they really did a great job of like making it look like you're actually like playing a cartoon instead of like playing a video game with like, graphics that have to accommodate your choices and everything. Like this is a beautiful game.
It would totally function as like a show. Like, just like there would be no, you wouldn't look at it if it was on like a Netflix show that you were streaming or something. You wouldn't be like, this kind of looks like a video game. You know what I mean? Like I think that's what attracted me to it, was like the visuals of it, because like from like comparing it to Telltale, I was kind of frustrated by the visuals of that series from day one. You know what I mean? So I liked that for Dispatch. The reason we keep citing Telltale is because there are former Telltale people there. But like from the beginning, it seemed very clear that they were like, no, we just want it to look really good. Like, you're not controlling these characters on screen or anything like that. You are effectively watching cutscenes, and you make choices that dictate, which the next cutscene that plays. But like, if you're gonna focus your game on narrative, like, why not do it that way? You know what I mean? Just make it look good, and like just leave the choices up to the player. And the way the choices are integrated are seamless. It's not like people suddenly stop talking for 30 seconds while you make a decision. Like you make your decision, and it's integrated in such a way that like the sort of story just continues seamlessly. So like it would totally just like function as a TV show, like on its own. Absolutely. To the point where it's like a little bit of a criticism is like, personally, I don't know that I got a lot out of it, not just being a passive experience, frankly. You know what I mean? Like, I would have been fine just watching it as a TV show, and I think I would have had the same experience personally. But that's like barely a complaint, because it's like it still says that I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I mean the voice cast as well is like similar to what you would get in like a Netflix show. Like, like Aaron Paul and Jeffrey Wright are in this. Like, those are like award-winning actors. Yeah, Jeffrey Wright's son is in this, who he does a great job as well.
Yeah, he's good.
But then, like, you have all like the mainstay video game voice actors like Laura Bailey, Matt Mercer, friend of Game Informer Alana Pierce is
and she's
is
great. She was really good in it.
And boy, oh boy, has her character developed a following online. Malevola. I was at MagFest a couple weeks ago, as listeners of the show know, and there was a Malevola cosplayer, and I messaged Alana. I'm like, hey, like, congratulations. Like, it's super cool that, like, you
cool.
voice a character who people are now, like, cosplaying. Like, that's got to be a really cool, like, feeling.
Jeans in a tank top. It's pretty easy to cosplay.
I mean, also painted completely red.
Way more than that.
Yeah, this woman was painted completely red and had a tail that moved as she walked. So it was a pretty involved cosplay.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've seen a lot of people, because I'm a big fan of like superhero media. Like, I love Marvel. I'm excited about like the future of DC after like James Gunn took over. And, I like a lot of like independent superhero stuff as well. They have done a thing in Dispatch that I feel like all the other superhero companies have seemingly forgot about. And that is superheroes fight crime. Like, I feel like every Marvel movie now is like a world-ending threat. And it's like so little of like Spider-Man going around and like stopping like bank robbers. It's like now it's like, oh, Spider-Man is here and there are 6 villains from a multiversal world that he has to stop alongside 2 other versions of himself. And it's like it's gotten out of control because of how this move towards like escalation and the multiverse and all that stuff. And it's like it was surprisingly refreshing for me to sit down and play Dispatch and be like, I'm sending a superhero to go like stop a heist, or like this guy is robbing a jewelry store. I'm going to send this superhero to stop them. And that felt so refreshing to be like, yeah, like that is like at their core what this function of a superhero is supposed to be. It's only through them doing that if the villains are supposed to escalate to their level, and that's why it becomes an arms race. And I feel like Marvel has lost the plot in that regard. But Dispatch does a fantastic job of like kind of reminding you like, oh yeah, there are street level crimes that these characters are supposed to try to like stop.
Yeah, that's their whole deal, right? They are it's a dispatch center. They're sending out superheroes to stop crime. Yeah,
and of course there is like a big bad that is in this game that I think they do a pretty good job with, that does kind of escalate beyond the street level stuff. We're not going to spoil too much, but I mean, what is it, 8 episodes I think?
Yeah,
it's pretty fantastic. It's probably, I mean, if it doesn't surpass like, I mean, it absolutely, if you look at it through 2026 eyes, it absolutely is my favorite game of this style that I've ever played. If you look at like how I felt about it at the time, it rivals Walking Dead season 1. It rivals Tales from the Borderlands and Batman season 2 that Telltale put out. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome, and I loved it. But
yeah, it's good. I guess maybe you were like rolling into this. My understanding is there is some sort of censorship, I guess you could say, in the Switch 2 version, which it was like an option on the other platforms, but Switch 2 defaults it on, and it's not something you can turn off. But their sort of line is that it doesn't interfere with the sort of like the narrative, and the characterization, which like I totally believe them, right? I think that is probably true. I'm guessing there's some pretty explicit nudity in the game. It's not overbearing, it's not like frequent, but I'm guessing those are the scenes that are probably scaled back a little bit on Switch 2.
So I was going to touch on this,
okay.
But I had a quote that Ad Hoc provided to Nintendo Life, asking about like, hey, why is this? And their quote was, different platforms have different content criteria and submissions are evaluated individually. For our Switch release, we worked with Nintendo to adapt certain elements so Dispatch could be on their platform. So as you indicated, like, nudity and language could be censored if you wanted to, like on PS5, Xbox, or PC, because there is a visual censorship toggle where you can turn that on or off, and that will censor anything explicit visually.
Hmm.
So what we see in the Switch version is that is toggled on by default and unable to be toggled off. And so that includes the nudity that you referenced. There's both male and female nudity that is censored in the game because of that. And it from what I can understand, it just shows as a black bar censoring it.
Okay.
And then there's also like, a middle finger that is censored if you turn on the visual
really?
censorship.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
There is a language censorship, like profanity filter, that you can also turn on. That is toggleable on the Switch version. So like if you don't want to hear any F-bombs, you can turn that off, but you can leave it on the Switch version, whereas the visual stuff is left off.
Okay.
And I don't see this as like a deal breaker by any means. I still think this is something that like if this is your only way to play this game, you should play it. But it is strange to me because, Kyle, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you load up the eShop, what do you see? Like in like the here's what's on sale, here's what's new. Like what do you see? It's unavoidable.
It's all anime, hentai, stuff, which I have never played any one of those games, but I imagine it's a lot of implied nudity in those games.
It's all like regardless of if it has nudity or whatever, it is sexually suggestive shovelware.
Oh yeah, big
that
time.
their entire like marketability seems to hinge on that very specific appeal. And like we have Cyberpunk 2077, from what I understand, completely uncensored, and there's plenty. I mean, one of the first things you do is create a character and choose how big you want their junk to be.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and that's totally in the Switch 2 version. I would assume. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I guess, but
it from what I understand, that version is completely uncensored.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird, and it feels like Nintendo is just being like kind of inconsistent with whatever policy they have in place.
Yeah.
And it's also strange because like you would think that the M rating and like the parental controls would allow you to put a game on, because like Kyle, you're a parent who has multiple video game systems.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you've at least looked at the parental controls, whether or not you use them, or instead of just like monitoring your kid. But like, it seems like the Switch has pretty solid parental controls.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, you can get really detailed with those. There's like a separate app and stuff like that for sure. Yeah.
So I don't understand why that wouldn't suffice, because like the Switch 1 is one of the highest selling game platforms of all time. The Switch 2 is one of the fastest selling game platforms of all time. You would think Nintendo would have to look at that and be like, there's a wide range of people. There are, yes, there are like 6 to 12-year-olds playing games on Switch 2, but there's also, 25 to 60-year-olds playing on Switch 2. There's 60-plus-year-olds playing on Switch 2. I think they can handle some cartoon nudity in their game.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not I'm not trying to say like, oh, Nintendo, this is where they did it and it's fine. Like I think it is weird that they're censoring this game in particular, but I wonder if their internal reasoning is that it does look like a cartoon. Like it does just look like an animated superhero show, and like maybe they just worry that like kids and parents are going to be like, oh yeah, this looks like, a Saturday morning superhero cartoon show. Sure, you can get that, kiddo, maybe, I don't know, do some research, parents, that's like on you if you buy your kid Dispatch,
with the big M rating on it.
I know, right? Yeah.
Not activate your parental controls.
Do a quick Google. It's not that hard.
Well, the AI will just tell you, oh no, there's nothing wrong with this game. You're like, okay, my work here is done.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, it's very strange. I like you said, I don't think it's a deal breaker. I think this game would still be perfectly functional. Maybe black bars would be a little disorienting and distracting, but you certainly would not have a diminished experience of Dispatch. I don't think so.
Yeah, like I said, it's an option in the original, so it's like this was a way that Ad Hoc intended people to play it, even if it's not like the default way. So it's like, it's not like they're completely like ruining their vision for the game. It's just like the cleaned up, like this is the version that could probably air on TV version.
This is the play with your parents version,
Yeah. Although I don't know if I would do that either, even with the black bars, given some of the content of the those scenes.
Well, Charles, the most explicit scene in the game opens one of the chapters, and apparently Charles just was playing that game in his living room with his mother-in-law was like around.
No.
So
I know exactly the one you're talking about.
Yep, it kind of comes out of nowhere. You don't really expect it. You're like, oh yeah, let me jump back into dispatch. It's like, oh, okay, that's what we're starting this thing with. Oh, okay.
It reminds me of Wes talking about how he was reviewing Code Vein 2 for us.
All right, yeah.
And it's a lot of like booby anime girls running around in that, and
women
like,
you would see on the Switch eShop, for example.
And his nanny was there like taking care of his kid while he's working, and he's like so embarrassed, like I promise, like this is a legitimate medium,
this is my job, I'm getting paid for this, I promise.
Well, Dispatch is available now on both Switch consoles, and even with the weirdness surrounding like the censorship, I think it's well worth it if you're a fan of superheroes or narrative adventures or whatever.
Just good writing, just funny,
very good writing,
good animation,
fun voice acting. You don't seem to be as high on the Dispatch minigame as I am, but I absolutely loved it.
It was kind of like fine to me, but but it's good. Like the thing I liked about it was the sort of the discussions that were happening between the characters. Like that was the part that I liked, and I could take or leave the actually doing stuff. But you're not alone, Brian. A lot of people like it for sure.
Well, yeah, go check that out if that sounds up your alley. But Kyle, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of All Things Nintendo.
You're welcome. Right on time.
And thank you so much to everyone for listening. As you know, my Patreon, the associated Discord server are the best ways to get any questions or comments in. But you can also get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com or hit me up on Blue Sky or Instagram at Brian P. Shea. Kyle, tell everyone any plugs that you have.
Kyle Hilliard on Blue Sky, kylehilliard.com on Blue Sky. That's about where the only place I'm at these days. That's it. Read my stuff on Game Informers. GameInformer.com/subscribe. Go check out MinMax. I'm over there too.
That is our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode of All Things Nintendo. Just before we get out of here, I just want to give a special thank you to the $10 patrons of All Things Nintendo. Alex Stadnick, Andy Junkins, Ben Richland, Chad Brecky, Chaps My Ass, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jawar Hello, Johnny 5, Jose Villalobos, Joshua DeCroy, Casey Radioman, Cody Gibson, Creeper 207, Ozman83, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Robert Sosa, Roberto Nieves, Roger Reichart, Russell Sayer, Smithy Poo, Zane Sink, and Zek 3 Sword Sama. Thank you. I know I say it all the time, but I could not do this show without you. Your support means so much. Thank you for your continued listening and support of this podcast.
Hey there, I'm Hugh from Moderation, and if you like today's show, why not check out Roll for Riz, a podcast as ridiculous and cheesy as its title implies. You might have heard of Isekai. You might have heard of Reverse Isekai. But have you heard of D&D Reverse Isekai, where an adventuring party finds themselves in modern-day Japan with their powers completely and utterly intact? It sounds ridiculous, right? But it sounds like you want to listen to it, right? Find Roll for Riz wherever you can get your podcasts.